Hello, my name is Sue Merry. I'm an Alexander teacher, and I'm here today speaking to Elizabeth Steinthal, who is the head teacher and founder of Educare Small School in Kingston upon Thames here in the UK. So let's say hello to Liz. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Sue. Hello, nice to see you.
You too, really great. I just wonder if we can start off by you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Well, I trained as a teacher in 1966, or I finished my training in 1966, and I've been working as a teacher practically all the time since then. When I did some of that teaching in Spain, and when we came back to England, I had 3 children, and I worked in the same school that they were going to, which was quite a big state school. And I then did all kinds of things, really. That's where I got to know Sue Merry, and first encountered the Alexander technique, where we were working together to try and have a look at children's handwriting, and then I was deputy head in that school, and then when the headship came up, I didn't get the job, and so this was an idea that I had had since my own children were little, and it was an idea to start my own school and to bring all the things that I'd learned that were positive and good about education and put them into a school. And it took a long time in Kingston, because Kingston's quite a built-up urban area, to find a building that we could possibly put it in. And when we found the building, which is a very calm, pretty little Baptist chapel, which is situated in the middle of a sort of business park, of quite a run-down business park, but it is ideal. It's a lovely environment for school. It's small, which is what was important. We've made we had to acquire the council car park next door, which is just a concrete area, and we made that into a garden. So it's a kind of garden playground, and it has a wonderful feeling, and much more fulfilling than all of the state school work that I did for many, many years.
So Liz, can you tell us a little bit about why it was that you started Educare Small School in the first place?
Well, when I was working in the last school I was working in, where I was deputy head, it concerned me quite a lot that little children, 5-year-olds, joined the school, which was had a 3-class entry, and they were very full of energy and motivation. And by the time they reached the end, it was an infant school. They were 7 and they were ready to move on. Quite a lot of them had lost that motivation and enjoyment of learning, and were really kind of seeing themselves as failures. And I was concerned about children who just fell into a grey area, which, through no fault of their own, that, you know, they didn't have special needs. They just needed a different pace or a different approach or more time to fulfill themselves as little people. And what I believed at the time when I started the school was that the school should fit around the child and not the child have to fit into the school. And that is one of our main principles when we were developing Educare, that, you know, that we followed what was the right thing for the child.
So Liz, can you tell us why you initially wanted to integrate Alexander work into the school, and how that sort of manifested in the early days?
When we started the school, we only had 3 children, and so we had plenty of time to think about how the curriculum, really, and what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. The word holistic was really important, and I knew that lots of schools use the word holistic, a holistic education, to describe what they were doing, but a true holistic education really had to cover all 4 areas. And I knew you, and I knew you from when we had worked together previously, and you very quickly came on board with the whole idea of this school, and we talked together about how we would be able to cover the physical development side of a holistic education. And actually, the physical development is the most important part of education for little children. And so we started off doing things like a movement circle, quiet time. So you did lots of stories and songs, puppets, super stories, and it went along like that quite a bit. You did some hands-on work as well with the older children, and then it started to develop, because the possibilities were always there, and you always had suggestions, and as we fitted them in, they didn't all work, they didn't all continue, but they kind of built an Alexander curriculum within what we were doing. So we have Alexander work running through every day of the week, from when children start in the morning until the evening, when they go home. It's in our language, it's in our furniture, it's in the way we work with children. And that has developed as we go along. I think the next addition to that was Sue developed you. Sorry, I keep calling you.
That's all right. No, fine. I know this is odd.
You developed the Lazy Eights and worked with children on handwriting, and tried to actually move that on, and that did work, and it was very useful. And that developed into Lazy Labyrinths, and the Lazy Labyrinths can have developed into us using them to help children to focus on what they're doing. It helps with interventions with children who are having difficulty with literacy. And we've developed the language. So to start with, we were using language like sit tall, focus. We were using words like think about what you're going to do next, think, breathe, stop. And now you've developed that into the ready list, and we don't even have to say that. You know, children know from their ready list exactly what they need to do. They know with all the very basic language, you know, sit tall, they immediately use their bodies in a very good way. You can see, you know, they're not sitting tall all the time. If you just say sit tall, then they do it. We've developed drinking water as part of that. We've developed it through a little bit of dietary help with children, or you did that. I think it has grown and grown. It was like a seed that we planted at the beginning, and it has grown, and it's really a very important part of our school now.
So when you were just describing what goes on in the school and the work that we have developed, the unique work really that we've developed, you mentioned a couple of times it worked. And I just wonder what your perception of that is. What do you mean it worked? What did you observe, or what do you observe? For example, you know, you mentioned specifically handwriting, and the fact that we do a little bit of you know, the Lazy Eight work,
yeah,
and the Lazy Labyrinths. And I just wondered, what do you mean when you say it works?
With the handwriting and the Lazy Eights, I think I know that we see that in that children children are not afraid to use pencils, crayons, paintbrushes, whatever. They have the confidence to actually pick them up and start. So they are using a tool body without thinking about it. They're not all hunched up. It doesn't become a stress feature in their school day. It's just automatic for them to stop, to think about what they're going to do, and then to start whatever the activity is. With the Labyrinths, we definitely, we carried out an action research project in school amongst all the staff, amongst the 3 age groups, just to find out whether we thought it made a difference for children to actually do a lazy labyrinth before they started. I've used it with individual children on reading interventions, and what you see is that they may come out to work not very motivated, very fidgety, not very focused. But if they stop, they do their lazy labyrinth, and then they carry on, they are definitely more focused on what they're doing.
Great, you know, it's great to hear your take on it, because I would say that that's my observation when I'm working with a child, and that's, I think, why, you know, we've kept that in, because we do tend to evaluate things, don't we? I mean, people may not realize that, well, the school's been open now for, is it 23 years?
Yeah.
23 years, oh my goodness. And we do always evaluate new ideas, or we evaluate things as they evolve. And also, I think it's important to mention that some of these things are taken from existing disciplines. And you would say, well, that's not pure Alexander, but many of them that we're using, well, all of them we're using as a focus for Alexander work. So using those lazy labyrinths and lazy eights, which are but the lazy eights come from Brain Gym. Lazy labyrinths are our thing, really, aren't they? They're done with Alexander sensibility, if you like. So the children are learning that part of that activity is using yourself well. And lately, as you said, we've been doing that with the Ready List. And it's interesting, I've been talking to a few of the children about how they interpret what the Ready List is, and also what their understanding of why we do it, and also their understanding of lazy labyrinths.
Yeah.
A big infinity sign or an 8 on its side, and there are small mazes. There's a small maze on each side in the middle of it, and basically what you have to do first is you have to go round the big 8 on its side. We call them lazy 8s because it's an 8 on its side, like it's lying down, sort of. And then we have to go through the maze with one hand and then the other hand, and then both at the same time. And it's, if I'm correct, it's to regain your focus.
The lazy 8 or the lazy labyrinth. So it's just something to relax your hand when you're. So it's sort of, the lazy 8 just does this, so then your hand gets more relaxed. If it's tight, and then your hips and your hand's tight, you do this, and you start getting softer and softer and softer.
We use a lazy labyrinth to kind of focus our minds. I think it kind of does the same thing as the Ready List. It focuses us and makes us concentrate, and basically you trace the lazy 8. You trace the lazy 8 first, go up and left, and then you continue going round, and then you use both hands and start at the entrance of the labyrinths, and you go through to the middle, and then you come out, and it focuses you and helps you to concentrate. It's a bit like writing with your fingers, going over the labyrinth and the lazy 8. So I think it helps me focus on that kind of thing.
You feel like you're sort of focusing on something. you don't feel like you care about anything else. You don't care if you're itchy or you don't care. You're just going. You're really focusing on something.
Softer and softer out, and softer and softer.
So when someone visits the school, or when a parent talks to you, Liz, and they ask you, why does the school use the Alexander technique? What's your answer? How do you explain it?
I suppose the first thing I say to them is about helping children to not lose that natural good use of their body by, you know, hunching them up on ill-fitting furniture, by allowing children to move freely. So within all of our classrooms, children use the floor. They've all got either trip-trap chairs or they've got stools to sit on. So they're always grounded when they're working. They're allowed to stand up if they want to. They're allowed to move around. And all of those things are really, really important for the way they develop. I talk about life skills because all of the things that the Alexander work is teaching children are life skills that they're going to be able to use all the way through their life. So, you know, I talk about how they learn to be still, which is not a natural thing for little children to be able to do, and it takes some much longer than others. It helps them to express their feelings because they know, they learn how their body reacts to their feelings, and they know how to express that verbally. So it's emotional literacy. The ready list is useful, you know, whatever you want to call it. It's useful for everybody, for adults, for children, you know, to just stop before you do things, stop if you're in the middle of something and you're stressed out. Just helps to calm you down, to ground you so that you can move on to do things. And 3 of the words that are the most important when I talk to you, Sue, I know we've been over this and we kind of dredged these words out of our conversations, that school needs to be safe, balanced and nurturing, and the Alexander work just supports that in every way.
What a brilliant school.
Yes. It is.
It's fantastic. I am so lucky to be able to work there. I mean, the best thing for me professionally that's ever happened in my life. I really am really grateful for what you've done, actually.
I think you have brought a great deal to the school. I don't think that we probably would have created, or I and other staff who work, you know, there's a lot of us who've all been part of this vision for the school, but you know, the things that you've brought to it are really important for children's learning. Yeah.
Well, it's a continuing joy, and I think I've learned so much from working there. Liz, a lot of people won't really know what we're talking about, referencing movement circle and quiet time. So could you perhaps run us through a typical Educare day, and including what happens at those sessions?
Every day starts off with a movement circle. So it's our kind of assembly. It's a coming together for all of us. The children just do very familiar exercises which help to energize them, to focus their breathing, to help with coordination, to help with balance. And it's also a time when they are all focused and we can just talk to them as a whole group. They then split up and move into their teaching groups, and they'll use the floor to just sit on the floor. They're allowed to sit cross-legged, to kneel, to wriggle around, and if they want to, they can stand at the back. Then after playtime, when they come in, they're stopped at the door, or they're stopped in the playground now. When we first started, we stopped at the door and put a hand on their chest just to focus them on what they were going to do. Now they stop in the playground and they do a little bit of cross crawling and thinking about, again, refocusing on what their next job is going to be. So it calms them right down. Then they'll come in, they'll do their activities until lunchtime, and after lunchtime, they'll come back in again and do quiet time. And quiet time is an important time for us because it's a time when they're lying, they're relaxing their body. So they're lying in an Alexander position, but they're relaxing their bodies and they're looking inwards. So they're totally silent. And sometimes they listen to music. Sometimes they are just asked to reflect on something, or they visualize, or they listen to a story. And it's just a time when we're trying to get them to shut out everything on the outside and just to look inwards at what is happening in their bodies and inside their head. And by the time they've done that quiet time, then they're ready to start the afternoon. They use 2 children who help, who go around and put gentle hands on each child as they're lying down, and it helps those children to refocus, to calm right down, to relax, to breathe. And that sense of touch between children is also really important. Yeah. So lots of parents tell us that children go home and do movement circle and quiet time, and put hands on their parents at home. I know my friends, their daughters, actually, they all do quiet time together. So they have a 2-year-old, and when the 2-year-old's having her sleep, then they all do a quiet time together if they're at home. Yeah.
Well, that's lovely, isn't it? And I know I've had feedback from parents occasionally about the children will put hands on them, if they're looking like, oh, it's like you look like you're all scrunchy, or or somebody complains about having a headache or something like that. The children will actually intervene and put hands on, and it's always lovely when you hear that.
Yes, absolutely. And we've had children young adults who have left the school, who have got back in touch, and the thing that they remember is the Alexander work. They remember how small it all was. They remember the Alexander work, and they remember about having a tall body. So they carry that with them. It is a true life skill.
That's the question that people always ask me. When I do the Alexandrian education training course, what happens to the children when they leave? And that's a really common question that people ask, because some people imagine that they just, they're suddenly horribly shocked to go out into the big world where there's a school that's got lots of kids, and they've been in this little cosseted environment. But of course our experience is that that's not what happens at all, isn't it?
No. So our children, when they move into a larger school, just step very confidently into that, and are really wanting to do it. So they're wanting to step out into the world. They're wanting to look further. They're wanting to find new experiences, and in general they do very well.
So Liz, we've covered a lot of ground. We could talk for hours probably, but is there anything else you'd like to say just before we round up this interview?
Yes, I think what I would like to say is that that the Alexander technique is part of our whole school curriculum, and it's part of a package, and without it our school would be good, but not as good as it is by using the Alexander technique, because of all of those things, all of those reasons that I've talked about before. It's a package that would be a very much smaller package without our work using the Alexander technique.
Well, thanks, Liz. It's been, as ever, great having a conversation with you. Of course, we know each other quite well. We've worked together for a really long time. But I really appreciate you giving this interview and talking so eloquently about the work that we do, and giving me your time when I know you're super busy right now with all the issues that are going on with lockdown and everything, and getting the school back up and running, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. And so just really to say thank you and goodbye.
Yeah. Okay. And goodbye to you too, Sue. It's actually, I think it's been very good talking to you as well, for you including us in your conference. I think, you know, there's benefits on both sides. You have brought a lot to us, and we are a very good example of how useful the Alexander technique can be in a learning environment.
So true. Brilliant. Thank you, Liz. Great note to end on. Bye for now.
Okay. All right. Okay. Bye.